Good afternoon. The meeting will now come to order. Hello, I am Tyra Battaglia, President of the Board of Education. I would like to welcome you to the January 8th, 2025 board meeting. In keeping with the board's commitment to open communication with the community, this meeting is being streamed live on the CCPS website at www.carrollk12.org and broadcast live on Channel 21. We are also recording this meeting so that it can be accessed on demand on our website and broadcast through the month on Channel 21. Public participation will be held at approximately 5:15 p.m. Speakers will be directed into the boardroom from the building lobby and be allotted 3 minutes to address the board. As a reminder, please silence all cell phones and other devices. Board members, please turn off your microphones when you are not speaking. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. May I please have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey,
I'll second.
a second by Mr. Whistler. Any other? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
And may I please have an approval of the minutes of the unapproved FY26 operating budget work session minutes of December 18th, 2024.
So moved.
Okay, first by Mr. Whistler and a second by Dr. Malvo.
And I
Comments?
would like to add that there were a couple of adjustments or revisions.
Okay. All right, and any other comments? Okay. With the revisions, please have a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Approval of the unapproved board meeting minutes for December 11th, 2024.
So moved with revisions.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey with revisions. Can I have a second, please?
Oh,
Second by Ms. Zimmer. All right. Okay. Comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor simplify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously with the revisions. Okay. All right. We will now move on to IE, Superintendent Cup Recognition. Dr. McCabe.
Good evening. This evening, it is my pleasure to recognize the top athletic program of the fall season for the Superintendent's Cup. Board members, please join me down front so that we can acknowledge the winners. Okay, first for a little background. Carroll County Public Schools created the Superintendent's Cup program at the beginning of the school year to recognize the top athletic program for each of the 3 sports seasons and an overall winner for the year based on 4 categories. The first is scholarship, program GPA at the conclusion of the first quarter. Second, sportsmanship, the score on the MPSSAA Sportsmanship Experience Survey as completed by coaches, officials, and administrators. Third, service, points earned for completing service activities to benefit the school community. And lastly, athletic success, determined by the varsity team standings during the Carroll County Athletic League season. Each category comprises 25% of the overall score for the season. Points are awarded by sport. The winter and spring totals will be added to the fall to determine an overall winner for the school year. When all the points were compiled for the fall season, Century High School edged out Liberty for the inaugural award with a score of 167.02. Liberty's score was oh so close at 166.19. And we also had Manchester Valley, who finished in third place. And now I would like to invite Mr. Michael Duffy, Supervisor of Athletics, Shannon Mobley, Principal of Century High School, and Ashley Hoyt, Administrator of Athletics and Facilities at Century, to come forward to receive the award. We'll also take some photos. That was a first. That's right. We'll be doing more of those.
It looks like no reports. Do you have anything from them? Have you heard?
I can reference it in my board report.
Okay, thank you. Sounds good. All right, we are going to now go ahead and move on to 2A, board member activities and correspondence. So we'll start with Dr. Malveaux.
There we go. Hello, everybody. Since our last board meeting, I completed the fall-winter semester with teaching writing and literature students at my college, with final grades being submitted, and the second half of the school year is starting, same as Carroll County Public Schools. I wish my students, as well as obviously our Carroll County Public School students and staff members, great success as we move into the second half. On December 21st, I came out to support 7th and 8th grade level basketball players from the North Carroll Recreational Council, and I watched some very competitive play over the break. I want to commend our children who are showing up and being such great sportsmen, showing great sportsmanship on the court, which is actually helping to create great citizens off the court. On December the 23rd, we continued our family tradition of going to the Manchester Volunteer Fire Department Train Garden. There was a huge turnout of friends, neighbors, and community members there. The same night, we also visited the McCurley Magical Christmas Lights display in Manchester, while donations were given again to the Manchester Volunteer Fire Department, and congratulations on their well-deserved 2024 Golden Light Award. On December the 29th, our family cashed in on our Hershey Park tickets that we purchased from the Shiloh Middle School PTO, and my son especially enjoyed his first time on a major roller coaster ride. And so he had to do most of the major rides. I wasn't going to get on some of those. I'm sorry. Also, on January the 2nd, I attended a legislative kickoff with the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce. Our delegation shared important objectives and plans that they will bring to Annapolis for the next few months. I wish them the best as they attempt to bring forth important legislation meant to improve conditions for our students and for Carroll County.
Okay. On December 13th, I attended the Equity Council meeting here at Central Office. Our committee reviewed data for Pillars 1 and 3 and results of the MSDE student survey. On December 17th, I attended the MABE budget meeting. Our committee had an overview of operations and trends and reviewed and discussed the proposed fiscal year 2026 MABE budget. And I just want to share a couple of highlights of the 2026 budget. One is that it reflects no increase in dues for the second consecutive year. And secondly, it also reflects the elimination of board development revenue, as those services are now going to be provided within the cost of annual dues. So I think those two highlights were worth sharing. Also that afternoon, I attended the Central Office holiday celebration. I joined in the festivities to celebrate the season with our Central Office staff members. On December 18th, we had our budget meeting where we attended and heard information about our 2026 budget here for our system. We learned of our superintendent's budget that night. On January 2nd, I also attended the legislative kickoff sponsored by the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce to hear about the bills that are going to be presented and the efforts during this year's legislative session. And finally, on the 2nd, I paid respect to a former supervisor and administrator of our Carroll County Public School System. Many of you in the room might remember Larry Tyree. Mr. Tyree was principal at Sandy Mount Elementary School, William Winchester Elementary School, and Manchester Elementary School. He also served as supervisor of elementary education here in Carroll County Public Schools. He will be remembered for the many connections he made within our school system while working on behalf of our students and for his contributions to our school system and community. I do hope that everyone was able to enjoy the holidays and that you're ready to work on achieving your goals as we begin the second part of our school year. And I'll end with sharing just an item concerning the beginning of next month. From February 3rd through 7th, we will celebrate National School Counseling Week. This week focuses on the unique contributions of school counselors and highlights the positive impact they have in helping our students achieve success in school and also as they plan for a career. We have a tremendous counseling program, and we appreciate the many dedicated and talented school counselors in our school system.
Thank you. Chloe, if you want to go ahead and start, and we'll then come down this way.
So on December 18th, on Wednesday, Carroll County Student Government had their General Assembly at FSK, and we had workshops on service learning, public speaking, and Linus blankets. It was a great time to also update our students on the Board of Education, especially moving into 2025, and the upcoming Schwab elections that will be held on February. And me and Enya would both like to thank everyone who came out, and we hope that delegates took away something from the workshops they were able to attend. That evening, I also attended the fiscal year 26 budget work session, where we learned about future plans and all the different factors that went into the budget. And Friday, December 20th, I held a Schwab interest meeting and talked to a couple of students about the details of being a Schwab and the election process with the primaries and the general. And January 7th, so yesterday, I went to the Maryland State school health council webinar where we talked about an overview of the 2025 legislation session, as well as talking about a universal meal plan study that was conducted last year. And upcoming, we have our Carroll County Student Government Association Leaders Meeting and Executive Board Meeting on January 14th. And I hope everyone had a fantastic break, relaxing and catching up with schoolwork. And I hope every student has a great rest of the first semester with 11 days left. And good luck to all county orchestra people who are practicing this week and the next, and for our seniors who are going through the final stretch of the application. And a personal note is I was able to figure out where I'm going to college. I was accepted to the University of Pennsylvania for a double major in business and international studies with the Huntsman program. So I just wanted to update you on that. So thank you.
On Friday, December 12th, I attended the Tawnytown Business Breakfast and got to hear from Commissioner Vigliotti as well as Mayor Chris Miller. On December 17th, I also attended the Central Office's Holiday Luncheon. On Thursday, January 2nd, I attended the Chamber of Commerce's Legislative Kickoff. And finally, I would say the highlight from the last month was on Saturday, December 14th, I attended Storytellers, a live Christmas event at the Carroll Arts Center. The event explored the stories behind some of the most famous Christmas songs through a mix of storytelling, music, multimedia, and performances by local talent. All the sales benefited some of Carroll County's outstanding local charities, including some of those who support both Carroll County Public School students and families, including Action for Kindness, Boys and Girls Club of Carroll County, the Community Foundation, Find Your Purpose, Habitat for Humanity, The Hive, HSP, Northeast Social Action Program, the Shepherd Staff, and finally the Westminster Rescue Mission.
Thank you. I hope everyone had a terrific holiday season with family. Thank you so much to our building maintenance personnel for getting our schools open so quickly, and I hope the students had a great 2 hours and 2 days of snow days to have fun with family. I have several items to report. On December 14th, I had the privilege of laying the POW MIA ceremonial wreath at the Wreaths Across America ceremony in Sykesville. We remember the 807 Marylanders and 93,129 American service members who remain missing and unaccounted for worldwide. The ceremonial guard from Century and Liberty High Schools did an exceptional job parading the colors and honoring our veterans, so good job to them. On December 17th, I participated, along with my colleague, Dr. Dorsey, in the May Budget Committee meeting. It was a pleasure working with other Board of Education members across the state to go over the structure of the budget and approve this year's annual budget. Later that day on the 17th, I participated in a planning session alongside many county stakeholders to help prepare for this year's Veterans Celebration Day, which will occur at the Farm Museum on May 4th. Sorry I was unable to meet the central office staff party, but I heard it was a great time with many people dressing up for the occasion. So I did see the pictures. On December 18th, I met with board colleagues and staff here for the CCPS budget work session. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We have a great many challenges ahead for our county, and I appreciate everyone's involvement to ensure every dollar we do spend is focused on improving academic outcomes. On December 19th, I visited Linton Springs Elementary School's holiday shop. The parents there, along with the staff, did a tremendous job transforming the activities room into a festive shopping mall where students could buy gifts for their families and friends, family members and friends. It was really, really fun. On December 20th, I visited one of our contractor bus lots to say thank you to our drivers for everything they do to keep our kids safe going to and from school. On January 2nd, I attended the legislative kickoff meeting sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce held at Carroll Hospital's Shark Auditorium. Legislators focused much of their discussion on how they plan to tackle a near $3 billion budget deficit. Much of the current deficit and the forecasted $15 billion over the next few years is directly associated with Blueprint. The decisions we see in Annapolis over the next 90 days will directly influence how we move forward here. So let's hope they give us more flexibility at the local level so that we can preserve low class sizes and maintain our academic standing as compared to other counties. And that's all I have to report.
Commissioner Vigalotti, is there anything you wanted to update on?
Well, I'll just say thank you very much for the invitation this evening. I regret that I will have to leave around 6, but I'm really interested to hear what you have to present about blueprints. I'm really grateful for the communication from this board to the Board of County Commissioners, and I'm very much looking forward to working with everybody in this board in its current incarnation over the next 2 years, and hopefully beyond. So thank you very much for allowing me to crash the meeting tonight.
Thank you. Right. Thank you so much for attending on short notice. I appreciate it. Very quickly, I attended the Career and Technology Center Skills USA Santa breakfast on December 14th. After the Christmas break, I had attended the Chamber of Commerce legislation luncheon and the Farm Bureau legislation dinner last night. It's always really good to attend those different events where a delegation, our county commissioners, and various other elected officials from around the county come together, and they do hear all the different concerns from the different areas and different perspectives on things that they want to hopefully see come from Annapolis this session. Upcoming events scheduled, I'm going to be attending a couple of things at the Career and Technology Center on Friday, the Engineering Trade Show, and also, depending upon the weather, the fashion show. So I'm very excited for that. I'm going to be taking my youngest because she is actually very interested in the fashion and textiles from when it comes her time. So we're going to head over there. And just a quick note on January 31st, parents, look for those report cards because they're coming home at the end of the month. And I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday break. And Dr. McCabe.
Good evening and Happy New Year. I hope that everyone had a wonderful holiday and enjoyed the winter break. And I've been told that our students definitely enjoyed their 2 snow days. We haven't had one in a while, and so I know the hip hip hooray went out all over the county. I'd like to congratulate Major Agatha Vogelsang, an earth science teacher at Shiloh Middle School, who has been named the Civil Air Patrol Aerospace and Education Teacher of the Year for the Maryland Wing. This award recognizes and rewards a Civil Air Patrol member who is certified K-12, a teacher, and has outstanding accomplishments in aerospace or STEM education. Agatha will now move forward for consideration for the regional award. Also, congratulations to Haley Bohr, a senior at South Carroll High School who won the grand prize in the 23rd annual Rethink Recycling Sculpture Contest. Her entry, a diorama entitled Artists All the Way Down, was made with cardboard, popsicle sticks, bottle caps, plastic straws, and other reused materials. In addition, students from Century, Liberty, and Manchester Valley High Schools won awards in the People's Choice, Creativity, and Use of Materials categories. High school students from across Maryland were invited to create sculptures made of recycled and reusable materials for this contest, which is sponsored by the Maryland Department of the Environment. The winners received Amazon gift cards and passes to the National Aquarium. So congratulations again. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is presentations. Dr. McCabe.
We have reached a critical point in our blueprint implementation work, where we are now bringing you a report on one of the most impactful aspects of the blueprint, fiscal compliance in blueprint program areas. Given the significance of this report, we will likely have an update at most board meetings going forward. Blueprint fiscal compliance goes back to the town hall meetings I began holding 2 springs ago. At that time, those meetings generated a good bit of discussion, conversation, and concern. we asked the state for some flexibility in meeting required fiscal compliance, and the governance bodies, the AIB and MSDE, responded with a policy decision granting local school systems a 3-year window to achieve full compliance. And so to some degree, the conversation I started with my town hall meetings died down a bit. However, the work did not go away. It only increased. In response to the compliance from the AIB and the Maryland State Board of Education, I directed Mr. Shockney and Mr. O'Neill to lead a work group that I appointed to develop a comprehensive system plan for achieving blueprint fiscal compliance under the state policy. I formed that work group in the summer and charged the members with composing their report by January so that the implementation of the report's findings could coincide with the next budget cycle and on a timeline to allow us to have sufficient time to work with our employee groups on all of the labor management implications tied to the work of the report. I do want to thank all those who served. This work group was one of the largest we've ever formed at almost 40 members. It included members of cabinet, other central office staff, school staff, leaders from 2 of our employee groups, and representatives from county government. Despite the size of the group, which can sometimes present challenges, the group functioned very effectively and efficiently and took the work extremely seriously, as the situation requires. I want to express my gratitude and appreciation to all who served, and while the subject matter is challenging and represents significant change for our schools, I think you will agree that the effort of the work group is worthy of praise. Before asking Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Shockney to present the work group's report, I did want to comment on the scope of this aspect of the blueprint. As I signaled 2 springs ago, fiscal compliance within blueprint program areas will mean sweeping changes to how our schools have been historically staffed and resourced. The work group analysis bears that out. Going through the process of achieving compliance and then operating schools will fundamentally impact every school in our school system. It will take time to fully contemplate this process of change and completely understand every impact at the school level moving forward. That being said, I think when you and the public receive the report, you'll see that the work group did their best to account for as many aspects of implementation as possible and provide us with a sound framework for this process. Lastly, I also want to comment on some of the discussion that has been occurring at the state level regarding potential alterations to Blueprint. Since the governor's remarks at the Winter Mako conference a few weeks ago, there has been much discussion and sometimes speculation. However, what we heard from the governor and everything we have heard since does not in any way change the mandate from the state for fiscal compliance. The changes the governor addressed have to do with the timeline for implementing the required teacher time aspects of the career ladder. We have heard some other discussion of potential changes to future implementation and fiscal impact of other Blueprint components. That being said, we've heard no discussion or signaling that fiscal compliance by program area is being changed. With that, I will ask Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Shockney to share the highlights.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe, and good evening, board members and Commissioner. Mr. Shockney and I will sort of share this presentation, so we'll trade off at different places. A couple of things that I have in my notes to say at the end, I want to say now because I've
Mr.
learned-
O'Neill, I don't think your mic is on.
Mike, I'm helpless.
Is it plugged in?
Plugged in. Jim?
Well, there we
I think
go.
now it's maybe
Solving problems.
just required a. Is that better? Just required a tap and yeah, okay. So thank you, Dr. McCabe. Good evening, board members and commissioner. Mr. Shockney and I will share this report, and so we'll trade off at different places. A couple of things I have in my notes to say at the end. I also want to say up front because the thing I've learned about myself is sometimes I stray from my notes, and these are important. Sometime tomorrow on the Board of Ed's website, under the navigation tab for Board of Ed, there's already a blueprint section there. But we will add fiscal compliance as part of that navigation structure under Board of Ed Blueprint, and that's where anyone in the public can receive this information. And also, as we move forward beyond just delivering the report and into the implementation of the report, that is the place where we will centrally house all information. So other analyses that come forward, links to town hall meetings once they occur, a calendar of events such as town hall meetings before they occur, all of that will be there. And once we have that portion of the website up and running tomorrow, we'll work with Ms. Gaddis and Ms. Bowers to send out a communication to all of our constituents so that they can know where that is and have access to it. Another thing I think we've started to say, and we want to say throughout the next few months as we talk about different things at board meetings, is this coincides timeline-wise with the development of the FY26 operating budget. But this is a different thing than that. They're happening at the same time. They're both budget related. But the FY26 budget process, like all of those before it, tends to be about how much additional revenue might we expect next year and what can we accomplish with that planned or anticipated revenue, new money, if you will. This is a process about looking at existing money that we already are operating with, regardless of the future of new money, and dealing with certain parts of the blueprint that require us to allocate our funding or allocate the resources that we use our funding on differently than we have perhaps in the past. And that's what we hope to explain tonight, and then give some sense of where this report will lead us. So with that, we'll get into it. Maybe. So we got the mic to work, and now we've got the clicker to work. So the superintendent referred to a work group and gave some background on that, and she gave some nice background on sort of the flexibility requested of the state and where we are. So I think we've already covered that. The work group began meeting in the summer in August and concluded its work Friday. So just in time for this meeting. And one of the first things we did was, as we gathered as a team, was to come up with a common purpose statement. And you're seeing that on the screen. And I don't want to read all of them, but I did want to cover just a couple of things. You know, we wanted to start with making sure we understood the requirement, and I think we did our level best to do that. Not as members of the work group, but we reached out to state officials and asked them for their insight, asked them to be aware, and frankly invited them to attend some of the sessions if they wanted to. And we're very pleased that we did get an executive from the AIB to join us for a session, and not just that, to stay engaged beyond the one session that they were in attendance for. And we got the president of the state board to come, and I think that was helpful to share some understanding and to have them be aware of the hard work that's happening here and what Blueprint looks like at the local level being implemented. Always considering what the impacts on students will be and how to best handle those. And then, you know, the last thing I want to highlight is that next to the last bullet, and Dr. McCabe mentioned this earlier too, you know, it was important to us not just to come up with, okay, what are the big things we'll have to do, but to try to unpack what it means to do them. And so we're going to talk a lot about a classroom teacher staffing ratio this evening. And it wasn't just enough to say what would the ratio be and why, and we'll explain that. But okay, then what does that mean? What do we then have to do? What processes grow out of that kind of an outcome? Dr. McCabe explained this. This is a reference to the joint policy. When this document's live on board docs tonight or on the website tomorrow, people will be able to click that link if they want to and go right to the actual policy statement. But the essence is it gives us 3 years starting in the year we're in to achieve full fiscal compliance. So that's kind of the important thing. We have to move from where we are today to complete fiscal blueprint compliance by fiscal year 27. And the first year, the year we're in, we had to make a good faith effort, and we believe that Dr. McCabe's decision to form this work group and produce this analysis is that good faith effort. The next 2 years, fiscal 26 and fiscal 27, are really about moving all of the parts into place to ensure that we are in compliance. And so what does compliance mean? Just real quick, we'll do a little bit of some of the stuff we've talked about over the years. Fiscal compliance means that we have to spend 100% of all blueprint funds in the program area for which they're received, and 100% of the funds received in that program have to be spent on those kinds of services, and 75% at least has to be spent at the school level. And so that means things like under the state formula, we receive money just on general enrollment. We call that the foundation money. We receive money for how many students are identified as special needs students. We receive funding based on how many students are identified as FARMS, free and reduced meal students. We call that compensatory ed. ESOL, which is also now known as multilingual learners. There's these program areas by which we receive money, and the requirements under Blueprint are that the money gets spent in that program and at the school level. Sort of the theory, the way they like to sometimes say it at the state level, is the money should follow the students to the schools where they are. And that's what this is about. Also wanted to note as we go here tonight and go forward through the budget process, it's important to understand that the Blueprint as a law restricts both the state aid we receive through this formula, but also the required local shares. So for the first time, we have a state law that is placing, placing some restrictions on not only state aid, which they could always do, but also on the commissioner's share or the local share of each of these program areas. And so that, that creates some things to have to work through in terms of flexibility and sort of restricting what we can or cannot do. Talked about some of these program areas. Here's what they look like financially. And so what we're operating under is a funding structure where the amounts of funding that we receive in some of these student-based program areas are sort of defined, at least for now, they're defined this way on the screen in the law for 10 years. So we know how much money we receive at the foundation or base per pupil level for every student enrolled, and then as a percentage of that amount, how much we receive beyond that for each student who falls into these other special student categories. And, unless the General Assembly takes future action to revise this in some way, we do at least know these are the numbers that we're looking at into the 10-year window. But these columns, if you will, the base or foundation, comp ed, English learners, and special ed are the Blueprint program areas that we're referring to as to where we have to be aligned and have to be in compliance. Our initial analysis, or I guess I should say now a refined analysis as the work group got up and running, is that the numbers on the screen are those fiscal compliance gaps that we're facing as a school system. And they both went up a little bit in terms of the two areas where we know we have a gap to close, compensatory ed and multilingual learners. And that has a lot to do with population change. So we spent some time at the budget work session talking about how our enrollment did not grow at the rate we were hoping it was going to grow to this past September overall. So total number of students really didn't change much. We were anticipating over 270 new K through 12 students, and we saw about 20 more K-12 students. But within that total number of students who fall into some of those special student populations of Blueprint program areas did grow, compensatory ed being one of them, and multilingual learners being another one. And so even though our total enrollment doesn't change much, those fiscal compliance gaps did increase a little bit from some of our earlier pre-work group estimates of what we were looking at. So it's a big number. 39 million in one area and 5 million in another is a decent percentage of our overall operating budget, and that's kind of the level of the challenge that the work group was working with. At the same time, and this matters for a lot of reasons to come, at the same time, as its own separate program area, special education, we, like almost every other school system in Maryland, can demonstrate through our data that we expend more in special education services to children than is required by the blueprint law for both the state and the combined local county share in special ed. And so that means a lot of things, and we're going to talk about some of them tonight. One thing it means kind of on the unfortunate end of the equation is that's $10 million more than required by law to spend in special ed that is not available to help close those other two compliance gaps, because there are other laws beyond just the blueprint that do not allow us, not saying we would even want to by any means, but would not allow us to back down existing special education services. So we're committed to that amount of funding, but it is a dynamic here.
I was going to add and let you take a sip while we're doing that. The overages in special education, Mr. Neal clarified it. That's not unique to Carroll. Every school system in Maryland is spending over the required amount through the blueprint. Just for the community's sake, I want to clarify, that doesn't mean we're being frivolous or overspending. We are providing the services identified for each individual student as identified by the IEP team, and that's our total cost. So I just want to be clear with our community that's we're not recklessly spending. Obviously, we're spending to meet the needs of our students with disabilities and to ensure each receives a free and appropriate public education. But as Mr. O'Neill alluded to, and we'll get to this in a second, is a unique thing to consider because this is one of the three programmatic areas where we are spending over the required amount. However, in the other two programmatic areas, we're currently not spending the required allotment.
See, that's what Mr. Shockney does best. He saves me, and he doesn't say the things I say, he just says them better. That's why he's so helpful. So there is a report. You have the report. The report will be on the website tomorrow. Beyond this presentation, there's a written report, and that report lays out into 5 key components. There's an overview, which gives some of the background that we've talked about tonight, and then in terms of how do we move forward, I would best describe the report probably as a framework or a roadmap for a starting point of, say, tonight through fiscal 27 of how to fully achieve compliance. And after the overview, those next segments of the report or sections of the report really address that process or address that framework. So one key component is what we're calling maximizing expenditure reporting by blueprint program area. We're going to talk about each of these. Another is realigning existing resources across our schools. Then we're going to talk about some of the implementation strategies, and then we're going to talk about the system communication plan. And all of these are in more detail in the actual report itself. So in order to ensure that those gaps that we're trying to close, that $39 million and that $5 million are in fact the final number, the correct amount to deal with, the first thing we want to do, or one of the first things we want to do, these things are all happening simultaneously, but we want to make sure that we're maximizing our expenditure reporting. So the blueprint restricts the funds in certain ways, and then on the accountability side of things, it's sort of twofold. It restricts things in certain ways so that we have to develop budgets in the future that comply with what the blueprint says, and at the same time, starting now, we have to, and this is true for every system, but we have to report all of our expenditures at the school level on a monthly basis by blueprint program area to the state, so that the state sort of has a monitoring ability to say, we're tracking your expenditures and we see that they are aligning or they're not aligning, or they're, we question your plan or your plan looks good to us because of what we're seeing on a monthly basis. So one of the most important things for us to do as a starting point is to make sure that we are maximizing those expenditures to the correct program. And there are guidelines and documents that provide guidelines from the state on what qualifies as, say, a compensatory education expenditure, for instance. We're going through the process now of looking at our budget codes and making sure that if there's anything that we historically haven't coded as compensatory ed, because historically there was no blueprint, but that it legally fairly qualifies as a compensatory ed expenditure or an ML expenditure or whatever, we want to make sure that in our monthly reporting we make the adjustments so that those things count. Because if there are some things that previously weren't reported but could be reported, whatever that amount of money adds up to, it will lower that $39 million to some smaller figure that's a little bit easier to deal with. So,
Hey, John, I'm sorry, hang on real quick. Dr. Dorsey has a
Yes, I
question.
just have a question concerning that reporting. So since the money is to be following the students, Will your monthly reporting be done by school?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, it is by school, by program area at the school level.
okay.
And it's extensive. It's a massive spreadsheet, or series of spreadsheets rather, that a lot of folks in Mr. Burke's shop have spent countless hours for a long time now just trying to make sure all of those data fields link up and add up. And so that, there's sort of untold cost of Blueprint. That's one. We're not arguing for more positions in finance, but I probably should be, because there's a sudden volume of work that's never existed before just relative to Blueprint. But good question. It is by school and then by program area. Yeah, and it's on a monthly basis. So the first thing is, can we close those gaps somewhat just by charging expenses that we previously haven't or haven't had to charge to a program area, to one of the program areas? We want to do that. The second thing is special ed, and this is maybe sort of a better, more positive aspect of special ed as a program. The state does recognize in the Blueprint law that special ed is sort of its own unique area. And there's some exceptions available to us with special education that are not available to us with any of the other programs. One of those is that we do have the option, we believe, to not report special ed expenditures at the school level, but to report them at the system level. And I think that's fair, and I think that probably reflects an awareness among state officials that the cost for, the per pupil cost for special ed services could vary widely from one school to another just based on the programming in the school.
Sure. The service delivery models that each school system utilizes are very different and unique. Our service delivery model is different than others. We're required to meet the needs of individual students at the end of the day, but our structure and how we provide those supports is unique to the other, and I think this is a recognition just of that. Like if you looked at, we have several specialized programs within certain schools, and then the enrollment in those special programs does skew the participation of students receiving special education services within those schools. So if we have school A that has a specialized program, there are going to be more students with disabilities as enrolled in that school potentially, where compared to school B that may not have a specialized program. And many of our schools fall within that first category throughout our system across all levels, and it's an effective way of us providing the special ed services in that least restrictive environment.
So our initial thinking is that we will take the state up on that provision in the Blueprint and not report special ed expenditures at the school level. The second thing that the Blueprint allows is that for overages in special ed, for that amount of money that we or any county are spending in special ed services beyond the required amount under the Blueprint shares, and for us that's $10.2 million, that those overage amounts do become legitimate expenditures for other program areas. I want to be clear, we're not saying that means we stop delivering those special ed services. Those special ed services are still being delivered, but they become legally charges that we can say, okay, we're going to use some compensatory ed or ML money. Those are the two programs that are flexible there, to pay for the special ed charges above the required shares. It's a legitimate comp ed expense, for instance, to pay for some or all of that $10.2 million that we're spending above the required shares in special ed. So these things, making sure that we look at all of our programming and code things as accurately as we can, and then dealing with some of the flexibility granted for special ed overages, we hope will lower those initial compliance gaps from something to something less than we see them at now, something less than 39 million, maybe something less than 5 million in ML. So that's very important, because that will set the final baseline of what the compliance gaps are, because the rest of closing those gaps deals with realigning resources among schools. Is this you or me? So the way in which there's a couple ways. The first way, and the biggest way in which we intend to do that, to meet compliance, is by establishing a new classroom teacher staffing allocation standard for our schools, different than how we've staffed schools historically. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. Secondly is within the program areas of comp ed, compensatory ed, and ML, we want to create a 5% variance at the school level in those programs because we want to sort of help the schools and protect the schools from being in a situation where they could overspend in a program area and then be out of compliance the other way, and then that causes a whole lot of issues at the school and the local level. Most of our money goes to staffing, and now Blueprint creates a new reality where the amount of cost of staffing in a school suddenly matters in a way that has never mattered for a system like Carroll. Historically, we've said to principals, Nick would say to principals, you get 50 teachers at your school, and then that principal can work with human resources and others to hire the 50 people they think are the best fit and who are qualified to be in their school. This would create a different scenario where you have to spend within those amounts in your program area, and we don't want principals to have to worry about that, and we don't want to put them in that position. So we need to create a variance in each program to prevent that, but that comes at a cost too, because this is, again, this is not new money. Now we're talking about reallocating or reorganizing existing funding and resources. So to create those variances, we have to find those savings in other positions. So there's two moving parts here: classroom teacher staffing allocation, and then looking at all of the positions in the system to see where we can make some changes.
Yeah, and this is where the departure and change from our past practices comes into play. In order to ensure our fiscal compliance within the programmatic area of compensatory education, we developed a new staffing allocation standard. Previously, staff was assigned to a school on a relative equal basis, that the same number, based upon the number of students within the building, were the factors that we would utilize in determining how many teachers or staff were in a building. To reach that fiscal compliance piece, we have to change that. And we developed a new staffing allocation standard. And it is a different standard for elementary, middle, and high. You can see that up there on the chart. We developed 4 tiers with a base. The base and each tier is based upon a range of students or a percentage of students who are eligible under compensatory education. Those percentages are very clear to us. We know exactly the percentage in each of our schools of students who are eligible under compensatory education. But if you look at the chart, and if you looked at elementary, for example, we have a base school standard of 0 to 5%. We have no elementary schools. We really have no elementary, middle, or high schools that fit within the current base standard. But we wanted a base to start and begin with. However, moving across, there are 4 different tiers. So based upon the number of compensatory education students within that building at that level, we can apply a tier to that. So at the elementary level, tier 1 would be schools that have a comp ed percentage range from 6 to 19%, and you can see as it works across. There is also a staffing allocation ratio that goes along with that. And I'll caution our community and those who are watching, that doesn't mean that's what the exact class size will be. That's just the ratio of staff to students. And elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools have very different instructional models, and therefore staff vary differently at each of the 3 levels. But if you looked at the elementary and you start from base to tier 1 to tier 2 and 3, as you will see, that ratio decreases as you work across. So schools with higher concentrations of compensatory education will have a lower ratio, and schools with lower concentrations of compensatory education will have higher ratios. So this is what we've been talking about before, saying that some of our schools will experience much larger class sizes than others. But the spirit being that additional resources will go, additional and shifting resources or reallocating resources will be made to support schools with higher concentrations of compensatory education.
Mr. Shockney, I just want to clarify.
Sure.
Elementary is for K through 5.
Elementary, thank you, Dr. Dorsey, is K to 5. Pre-K is not factored into this here as well. Sure. So in looking at some of the numbers, just to clarify, it applies only to classroom teacher staffing, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Like for example, at the elementary level, it includes all of our classroom teachers and all of our related arts, or our fine arts and fitness teachers as well. So we structure based upon homerooms at the elementary level. So again, what and I'll get to this a little bit more in a moment, we are now in the process of applying the new staffing allocation standard to our current schools, our current staffing allocations, our current number of students, to determine what changes and what those changes will look like to class size. So as we have said before, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I'm going to talk a little bit about it later, it will be shifting resources. These are all resources that we are currently utilizing in our schools, and they will be shifting. That includes potentials for changes obviously in class sizes, but it also could result, especially at the secondary level, in changes in course offerings. We may have less course offerings. We may offer courses less frequently than we have in the past. And other resources within buildings will shift. Resources that we currently maybe have across all schools now may not exist in the future in all schools. They may only exist in some schools. So where we're at now is applying the new staffing allocation standard to where our current students and staffing lie, and being able to project out a little bit clearer what that is going to look like for us as we go.
Two more points for clarification, and then Nick will move into school by school looks. So he talked about what's included here. What that means is not included here would be non-academic or homeroom classroom teachers, non-related arts or fine arts teachers, so special educators, and this won't be all of them, this will just be some of them to give the idea. Special educators are not part of this. Counselors not part of this. Related service providers like speech language pathologists not part of this. Other specialists, reading specialists, math specialists aren't part of this. There's something to be said about those other positions too as part of this process, but this ratio only applies to classroom teachers. And at the elementary level, to Dr. Dorsey's point, K through 5 classroom teachers. The other thing is, this is a work in progress still. The parts are moving here. So I spent all of that weird amount of time talking about maximizing expenditures by reporting area. If we lower those gaps from 39 to something less and from 5 to something less, then it gives Mr. Shockney and his team an opportunity to come back and relook at this allocation standard and say, okay, maybe we can tweak these ratios that you're seeing tonight as a starting point in a more favorable way in terms of resources in schools. So, and that's going to be a tough one for the community because this is what they'll have in their hands, and it's still a moving target. But this is a starting point.
By no means the final product.
But not the final.
Yeah, by no means the final product. Not clicking. There we go. So the next 3 slides are just a school-by-school breakdown by level that breaks down the current number of FTE or staff that's assigned, or full-time equivalent staff that's assigned, the current ratio, the school's current compensatory education percentage, and then the tier in which that school falls. And those charts exist, obviously elementary, middle, and then high. And we have schools across all 4 tiers in the work.
Yeah, so I would say to members of the public who might watch or tune in later, now is the time to get very, very interested in this. Now is the time to go to your website tomorrow maybe, or the next day, and read this report and start to process it for yourself and digest it. We're still a bit away from where you should elevate that from interest to something more. I think, and we'll come back to this as we conclude, but probably at your next monthly meeting, we'll be talking more about final products and in terms of that ratio, final products in terms of maximizing expenditures, and final products in terms of what other positions not part of that ratio that we also need to look at as a system. The superintendent utilized the work group to provide her with thought and with analysis and a lot of collective expertise, and then she kindly took on the unfortunate task herself of determining, okay, what is the precise path we're going to take to move from this year where we're not compliant to becoming 100% compliant by fiscal 26. And there were different options that we pursued and considered and tried to assess and weigh the pros and cons, if you will, of each of those options. But ultimately, Dr. McCabe had to make an executive decision as to what does she believe will be the process that will get us to full compliance, and it's sort of in a menu of not great choices anyway. What's the way in which we get there in the best possible way? And so we vetted these as a work group, and then she came to the conclusion that the way in which we'll phase into compliance is in fiscal 26, we will bring all secondary schools, so that's middle and high, to full compliance. And then in fiscal 27, we will do the same with all elementary schools. We believe that of the limited options available, this is one that does comply with joint policy number 2 from the AIB and the state board. If you look at the quoted language from that policy on the screen or were to read it, the requirement in fiscal 26 next year is that at least half the percentage of students within a district in a school that aren't in compliance, that's all of our schools, would be in compliance. The way our enrollment breaks is fairly evenly along elementary and secondary enrollment. So this approach, or the reverse for that matter, would comply with the policy. Do you want to make comments on secondary schools and what it means for scheduling?
Sure. We know that our students are actively planning for what their next school year is going to look like. We recognize that there may need to be some changes to our students' plans as we move forward, which is obviously why we're doing this as soon as possible to be able to communicate that. We're going to know, and getting ahead of ourselves again, but within mid-February, we're going to have a much clearer picture. There's lots of work that's happening currently with this. So I'll ask for your patience and the patience of our community as we work through this just a little bit, and then we can be a little bit clearer as we go. But as Mr. O'Neill said, our first focus will be implementing this at the secondary level. However, that doesn't mean we won't be doing work to prep and prepare at the elementary level for fiscal year 27. There's lots of work to be done with our staff on how to teach in different organizational models. And we need to be able to train and coach and prepare folks to be able to do that as well. So lots of work happening.
It also means that we would pause any other work that might impact these levels. So you've heard us at prior blueprint reports, updates, tell you that Ms. Shockney has 3 scheduling committees, one for each level of the system, elementary, middle, and high, that are looking at potential changes to the schedule that might best support a career ladder framework. For instance, in this scenario at the secondary level, regardless of if those committees have wrapped up their work, we would not move forward with making those kind of changes at the same time that we're going through this process of change. So there's some back and forth and some trade-offs there. We've said this enough, so I'll just summarize. All of these things are happening at the same time. All of these things are ongoing. Lots of folks are waist deep working on the further analysis and the next steps. It's sort of your February meeting where we believe we would be able to come back in a public format and say, here now is what we do believe is the final number for the compliance gap in each area that we're trying to close, and here now is the final classroom teacher staffing allocation, and here now is then, I think at that stage, Mr. Shockney would be perhaps prepared or close to it to say, and based on that final allocation or ratio, here's what we think that would look like school by school at each level in terms of staffing and in terms of a class size analysis. So February would be, I think, kind of the critical month for that level of detail. The final part of the report section of the report is the system communication plan. We understand this represents a tremendous amount of change. We also very clearly, because we grapple with this every day of our lives, we also understand that these are very complex and nuanced concepts. And we do this for a living, and we live and breathe it, and we always find ourselves in every conversation heading down one road mentally and then saying, oh, but I forgot about that. And now we're asking the public to figure all of that out for themselves as well. And so it's not only a lot of change, it's complicated, and it's a bit hard to understand. And even if you're immersed in it, it's still it's hard to follow every segment and every moving part of it. So we know we have to do our best to have a way in which we can keep the community informed, update the community, and do our best to share the information, to answer questions. And the plan itself lays out a more complex or comprehensive version of communication plan. But some of the highlights would be, this is the beginning of the public part of the work tonight. The website should be up and running hopefully tomorrow, and that will become the central storehouse of information. We'll add to it as we move forward. There's also an email that folks can click on to offer some feedback or to ask questions, and we will do our best to answer them. And if we'll handle the volume as we can go, but hopefully we'll be able to answer people who have a question. But that website will be a key area. We'll also do a lot of outreach to stakeholder groups. So for one example, we'll meet with the CAC, the Community Citizens Advisory Council, and present. We want to figure out the best way to meet with students, our SGA, and the superintendent is planning some town halls, at least one for employees, limited to employees, and then a couple for the community at large. We hesitated to put dates on the calendar just yet. We'd feel more comfortable once we have that remaining analysis a little more wrapped up, and we know for sure headed into February we'll have those kind of details. Once we have those details and feel good about them or feel certain that that's where we are, even if it's a little bit in advance of your February meeting, we might then begin to schedule dates onto that calendar, which will be maintained on your website under Blueprint, for when this town hall will be and when that town hall will be and when other things will happen. We'll also reach out in other ways. For instance, I've already emailed this report to some stakeholders. I'll be sending it soon to all elected officials in Carroll County on behalf of the superintendent. Already have had some outreach from county staff and maybe the commissioners to have an opportunity to further their understanding of this. So all of those things and more will be happening, and then of course we'll be open to any feedback you have now or moving forward. And with that, I think it's a good place to end and see what questions you might have for Mr. Shockney.
Any questions or comments? Oh, I guess we'll start down here and we'll work up and make sure we use our cards. Mr. Malvo.
Just
Dr.
one
Malvo.
comment, I think we kind of talked earlier, but again, with the Blueprint, expectations that it would be 10th grade instead of 11th, in which high schoolers can be college ready and dual enrollment occurs and so forth. Again, do you think that's going to have an impact significantly on the classroom sizes at the high school level that you put in here, and is that reflected?
Sure, it's a possibility. As we've implemented or expanded dual enrollment, we've always had opportunities for dual enrollment. As we've expanded that, we've seen lots of students interested in that. Potentially, yes, Dr. Malvo, if we have to compress our course catalog, which I envision we will, or the number of the courses that we offer, if we also don't offer courses as frequently as we've offered them in the past, could I see some students utilizing dual enrollment as a viable option? Yes, I do, moving forward. That is something that I can see, continuing to grow as a result.
But to add to that, some of that might also depend on the capacity of the college. This is one of those cases where there's lots of Blueprint parts and two of them are running into each other here. A good bit of dual enrollment that's delivered to our students today is delivered in our schools by our teachers on behalf of Carroll. And then when you look at the career ladder and its requirements eventually with time and teacher time and other elements, it's probably going to be hard for us to continue our portion of delivering dual enrollment at the level we have. So there's some trade-offs there as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, as we're making difficult decisions, the opportunities for dual enrollment is a great opportunity, and we do that in the spirit of equity to provide opportunities for students who may not be able to get to the community college by teaching those courses with our staff within our building. However, when we're compressing or having, difficult decisions to make, this is one of them. Like, do we, in lieu of teaching a dual enrollment course, do we utilize that that staff member to teach a different graduation requirement or a differentiated level of that graduation requirement? So those are going to be some of the very difficult decisions that we are currently in the process of having. But there are lots of things. That's an example of things that we've historically been able to do in CCPS that may not be able to continue across the board or in some places or at all. And I think that's a great example. But ultimately, could we see more students participating in dual enrollment at the college? Possibly, as a result of it, to answer your question.
Any more questions? Mr. Whistler?
I just have a comment. Again, Superintendent McCabe, thank you so much, Doctor, for your work group and all the input that we got from them. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Shockney. It's just really important that the public understand that these mandates are forcing huge budget increases for school systems, not only here in Carroll, but across the state. It's going to make us move significant numbers of teachers around our county, whether they like it or not. And it will have an effect on class sizes, as you mentioned. All of those things are thrust upon us, not something that we wanted to do locally. It'll also have an impact on the courses that we offer in our high schools, especially at the secondary level, because you won't have enough teachers at some of these schools to offer the numbers of courses. So it's really important that the public understand the impact of Blueprint and how it significantly, as Dr. McCabe mentioned earlier, changes how we do business here, or will over the next 3 years. So hopefully folks aren't blaming the Board of Education or the Board of Commissioners for all of these issues. It's really important that the public get involved and have communication and discussions with your legislators in Annapolis. We need major reforms to Blueprint. We need more local control so that we in Carroll County can manage how we educate our kids and not have edicts thrust upon us. So again, thank you so much for everything that you gave. You gave everyone a sobering look as to what will evolve and happen over the next 3 years. And but we'll do everything we can to work with our partners across the street, the commissioners, and our educators, our principals, our parents, to make sure that we do everything the best way we can. Thank you.
And Chloe, go ahead.
I just had 2 questions. Can you, I don't know if this is a little too in the future, but do you see any subject areas being hit the absolute hardest when it comes to staff allocations?
Sure, it's difficult to say what that exactly will be right now. That's the difficult work that we're doing. Obviously, we have graduation requirements. Those are our priorities. We have to meet those. We've been able to offer a wide range of elective courses, as well as a wide range of differentiated course offerings, courses with lots of support built in, and courses that are very advanced or have some very challenging components to it. We're going to have to meet our graduation requirements, but no doubt there'll be courses that exist today that will be limited or may not exist in the future. And we've talked openly about we're going to employ as many strategies as we can to preserve. I think Ms. Kang, we talked about in the past about the potential for maybe could we utilize some virtual offerings to try to preserve some of our courses that may not be offered in one school, but maybe is offered in another school where multiple schools virtually could participate. There's lots to be worked out there in the mechanics behind that and being able to do it. But yeah, we're going to be as creative as we can, but I can say with confidence it will be different and it will be less and less frequent with our courses, as well as our supports for students as well that exist in our buildings as well. That's going to look different. It's not just classroom teacher positions that we're talking about reallocating. It's all of our positions. Positions in schools, positions at a central office, all of our positions we're looking at the reallocation of to best meet the students. And we're going to do the best we can with what we have. It's always been our commitment here, and that will continue to be. But it will look different. But to answer your question, Ms. Kang, no, I don't know yet, but I can say we're going to have to focus on our graduation requirements and then be able to work out from there.
Another one that I had with that, with like thinking of what you just said, do you think that graduation requirements could be changed, like with the fine arts or more like the physical education or the health guidelines? Do you think those would be shifted if like things came down to the wire?
All of our graduation requirements are set by the state. Locally, we add in a half credit of financial literacy. I'm looking back to Mr. King, and that's our additional credit that we have. But that would be a state change to be able to change that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Again, I would like to thank everyone that was involved, from the very many stakeholders that worked extremely hard on the work group. So thank you, everyone. Okay, moving on, we have 4A, our school construction report.
This is our monthly school construction report that provides you with updates on the status of our major projects in construction or design. As always, Mr. Marks, our supervisor of school construction, is here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Moving on very quickly, board members, our student government rep came in a little late because of, I guess, our new time. You were not aware. Is everyone okay with allowing him to speak real quick before public comment? Okay. Mr. Dean, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ms. Battaglia. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your patience. I apologize about a little miscommunication. My name is Mason Dean, a junior at Winters Mill High School, and I am your Carroll County Student Government Association Vice President. This past month, CCSGA held its Winter General Assembly at Francis Scott Key High School. Over 150 middle and high school students around the county attended and listened to student keynote speakers and workshops about service learning. Our staff and officers have been preparing for the next General Assembly that will take place at Century High School in February. At this General Assembly, we will vote to select 2 candidates for the student representative of the Board of student representative on the Board of Education elect position. Finally, our staff have been completing their passion projects, one of which is a monthly forum for all high school SGA presidents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. And now we will move on to public comment. Mr. Whistler.
Thank you. To have an orderly presentation of comments by the public, the following guidelines apply. Speakers with a connection to CCPS will be allowed to address the board for the allotted 3 minutes. Only those speakers that have registered online and have been notified by the Communications Department will be permitted to speak. Priority will be given to those citizens that are addressing the board about an item on the current agenda. Citizens not appearing in person for public comment can write to the board through email or U.S. mail. Public participation is not intended to be a question and answer session. However, if citizens have specific questions, the superintendent will assign a staff member to make contact during the board meeting to arrange a time to respond to questions. The superintendent and board reserve the right to correct misinformation presented as factual after the conclusion of the public participation period. Statements to the board should relate to a recent agenda item, an agenda item that is expected to appear in the future, or a matter of general policy over which the board has authority. Personnel matters, pending appeals, the actions or statements of individual staff, or items related to employee negotiations are not appropriate topics and may not be discussed. The board has scheduled time on the agenda for public participation at approximately 5:15 p.m. The board reserves the right to limit the number of speakers on a particular topic so that all topics may be addressed. Additionally, the board retains the discretion to allow additional speakers as it deems appropriate. The board is allowing no more than an hour for public participation. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or less. All comments should be directed to the board members at the dais. Citizens may only address the board with their individual comments. Citizens may not stand in for another person or group and read their comments. When the allotted time expires, the speaker is permitted to complete a sentence. Citizens may leave any handouts for board members on the table at the back of the boardroom. Please do not approach the dais. Additionally, the public may not display signs or posters during the board meeting. In lieu of signs, or if you are unable to complete your comments in the allotted time, individuals are encouraged to submit remarks to the board in writing. Those seated in the audience are asked to be respectful of the speaker and refrain from commenting to the speaker or to the board members. And I believe we only have one speaker for this evening, and that is Mr. Gary Foote.
Good evening, board members. Commissioner Vigliotti. Happy New Year. During some extra reading time over the course of the last few days, I learned something fascinating. A study of 15,000 men and women from ages 18 to 80 over the last 7 years found that 6 simple weight training exercises performed once a week for 15 minutes a week was all it took to build full body strength. Now, stronger people live longer, they have less anxiety, they have fewer problems with weight control, they have better balance, and I could go on, but I only have 3 minutes. And it turns out that 40% of premature deaths are caused by simple lifestyle choices that people don't implement, in many cases because they don't know any better. So while I was following this plan for the first time, I started wondering, first of all, why I hadn't learned about any of this earlier. And then I started wondering about techniques for teaching and learning that were out there waiting to be uncovered, most of these being ideas that would cost almost nothing to implement. And why do we continue using techniques that don't work simply because it seems to be easier that way? Pillar 3 of the Maryland Blueprint involves evaluating and implementing curriculum standards. Are we truly using best practices to ensure all students can perform at high levels of competence in math and readings? Our record says that this is not the case. Many of you perhaps remember Just Say No programs from the 80s and 90s. What you may not know is that after 20 years of implementation, it was found that these programs had exactly the opposite of their desired effect. More kids were experimenting with drugs instead of fewer. It's time to insist on educational practices that are effective and have been proven so. Today, we are still mourning the passing of our 39th president, who famously promised to never lie to the American public. Many of you supported a candidate in the fall who lied over 30,000 times during his first full term. Do you hold yourselves to higher standards than the presidential candidates you support? If we have any hope of improving our schools, honesty is a necessary precondition. And part of being honest includes being able to admit that some of our favorite ideas just don't work, and we need to replace them with actions that do.
Thank you. All right, next up we have our employee groups.
Just me tonight, Ms. Porter's at an MSEA event. Good evening, Superintendent McKay, board members, and Commissioner. I'm Celeste Jordan, President of CCA. I hope everyone enjoyed the snow. I would first like to thank Board of Ed member Greg Malveaux for having a conversation with Nathan Curtis and me. I think all of us came away with a better understanding of issues that Carroll County is facing and how we can approach them working together. Obviously, there will be times we disagree, but we are always willing to talk to make CCPS students and educators successful. As we have heard tonight, the blueprint for Maryland's future is going to change the way things are done in Carroll County and across the state. Change is always difficult for everyone, and it is easier just to say we've always done it this way or we're doing just fine. One of the biggest challenges for CCPS is due to the austerity measures taken years ago by previously elected officials. CCPS cut its staff to the bone while other counties did not, giving them greater flexibility when they're working towards the blueprint. Yes, change is going to be difficult. However, along with these challenges comes some wonderful opportunities that we rarely get. One such opportunity was creating the CCPS Career Ladder and providing significant raises for all of our educators. In addition, as I hope HR would agree, those increases led to some wonderful hires this last summer. Another thing I'm very proud of is the collaboration between CCPS and CCA on blueprint issues. While we don't always agree and there are tough conversations to come, it feels strange when leaders from other counties ask me how we made that happen because they are not included in their county's blueprint conversations. My only explanation for our successful collaboration is that everyone is acting as professionals on both sides and treating each other with respect due to one another. This is something that we can all benefit from across the state. When thinking about change, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a colleague who is also a high school math teacher. We discussed the changes in our teaching due to the pandemic. The two of us are old school math teachers. However, during the pandemic, we learned new ways of reaching our students and helping them succeed. We continued to use our new skills even after we came back. And in hindsight, we are both better teachers now because we've incorporated our new skills into our old school ways. This change is going to be difficult, but I believe CCPS is going to be a leader in the state because we are willing to have these hard conversations and work together through this process. As Albert Einstein said, the world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we are currently now moving on to action items. May I please have a motion to go over approval of award of bids?
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Dorsey. May I have a second? A second by Ms. Zimmer.
Okay. There are 5 items on the award of bids this evening. The first is alternative transportation for non-public students. We use services to provide alternative transportation for a handful of students when the bus is not a viable option. This award is to increase the amount of one of those contracts. Anytime a contract amount exceeds $25,000, by regulation and board policy, we bring it to you for approval. Second, compressor replacement at Manchester Valley High School. This item is to share with you that we employed emergency procurement to replace compressors at Manval. We used the local CIP project for infrastructure renewal for this item. The third for tonight is refrigeration units for food services vans. This award is to install refrigeration units into 2 food services vans. These vans are used to transport food from our various service kitchens to their satellite schools where they serve. As always, the food services program is self-funded. Fourth, the central office security improvements. Last year, we began making some security changes to this building to bring it and make it more aligned with the standards we have in all of our schools. This award is to complete that work, and it is funded by our local CIP project for security. And finally, musical instruments. The final award is the purchase list for musical instruments as needed by schools throughout the year. Questions?
Dr. Malvo?
Just a little bit for maybe just my own clarification with number 1 sole source procurement. Could we elaborate slightly on who are our non-public students?
Sure. We have certain special ed students who are Carroll County Public School students whose special education service needs ultimately require them through the IEP process to be placed outside of Carroll County in a non-public special education school or facility. But yeah, there are students, we still have to transport them, and we also cover the tuition for those students. So in certain cases, if ride time is such, or if certain conditions on the bus are such that it's more expedient or better for the service of getting the student to the non-public placement, to put them in an alternative transportation model as opposed to a school bus, then we make that decision to do that. It's a very limited number of cases. The last time I reviewed the data, I think it was like 10 or less than 15, about 10 students system-wide. So we're not talking about a large number of students, but transporting one student an hour and a half from their home in a van has a cost to it. And so also to clarify, this is an existing contract. This isn't a new contract. It's just that we recognize that the expenditure level is going to exceed $25,000, which is the threshold to come to you for approval. And so we're doing that just to dot our I's. Does that help? Yeah. Okay, good.
I had a question in the same realm. So which program is that? I'm not familiar with that particular Youth in Transition.
Youth in Transition is the transportation company, or a company that in this instance provides individualized student transportation. So it's sort of like a student in a van, or maybe two students in a van with a qualified driver, taking a student who resides in Carroll County to a non-public special ed facility. I think all of which are outside of Carroll County, and there's some in the city. There are some in Montgomery County. There are different facilities that some of our special needs students go to. But Youth in Transition is the company providing the service.
I see.
Oh, it's also the school. So maybe that's the confusion. It's also a school, but in this case, they're a service provider.
And is there any concern about the fact that that number of students going out is increasing?
No, that's a good question.
No, I mean, I don't want to speak for Ms. Whittle and her folks, but the census of students who attend a non-public placement, they monitor very carefully. It's often the most restrictive placement for a student with a disability. But the census, we keep a close eye on. About 80 students system-wide participate, and we are legally required to provide transportation as part of that non-public placement. Did I answer your question there, Ms. Zimmer? Thank you.
From the alternative transportation lens, we have 3 providers, Youth in Transition being one of them. So we've got 3 providers handling 10 students.
Any other questions? Dr. Malvo?
It's more of a comment than a question. That last category, musical instruments, I think that's commendable that the county's paying for musical instruments. The arts are so important. I do remember playing clarinet and having to pay for my own clarinet, or playing percussion and paying for those instruments when I was in school. That's another county, but I think that's excellent that we do that.
Thank you. As a tremendous proponent of band, I appreciate that.
No, I was going to say, I know it's, I think it's more of like some of it we supplement a little bit. Because I know personally I'm still paying for my kids' viola.
Yeah. We don't pay for all. Right.
Yeah, but there's some supplemental.
Yeah.
But we do make sure the kids that want to play can play. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor may signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Next item would be 6B. May I please have a motion on that action item?
So moved.
By Mr. Whistler, and a second? And a second by Dr. Malvo.
Okay, 6B, the approval of board members to advisory committees. Last month, we shared that with the changes to the board's composition, we need to examine which board members wish to serve as board liaisons to the various advisory committees. The board has arrived at these assignments, and we bring them to the board for their approval.
We approve ourselves.
Yes, you approve yourselves. This just means that you all agree to,
Yes.
to the
Any
assignment.
questions or comments? Board members, I would like for us to also make sure when we're doing our board activity reports monthly to kind of like touch base on anything that you have done within the committees. That way we can make sure the community knows, what's going on within the committees. Okay. All right, may I call for the vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on the item is 6C, approval of ethics panel appointment.
So moved.
Dr. Dorsey,
Second.
and a second by Mr. Whistler.
Tonight, I have one recommendation to fill one of a couple of vacancies on the board's ethics panel. The ethics panel meets as needed to ensure compliance with the board's ethics policy, which in turn is based on the state ethics law. Any comments or questions?
I'm glad to see that.
It's a good addition.
Yes. Okay.
So we're
Right.
losing some good ones, and Tom is coming on. That's great.
All right. Any comments or questions? I call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. May I please have a motion on 6D, approval of personnel action items?
So moved.
I'll see Dr. Dorsey and then Mr. Whistler.
Okay, lastly, for the monthly personnel action items, there are 5 new hires, 1 release from contract, 1 broken contract, and 1 leave of absence.
Okay. All right. I call, any comments or questions? Okay, I call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. All right. We have no discussion items. So with that, ooh, it's not even 6 o'clock? Wow.
Yeah.
All right. The Board of Education will meet at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, January 29th, for a special board meeting on the FY26 operating budget with no public participation here in the boardroom at 125 North Core Street in Westminster. We will meet also plan at 6 p.m. Wednesday, February 5th, 2025, for the FY26 operating budget hearing, followed by a work session in the boardroom at 125 North Core Street here in Westminster. 4 p.m. on Wednesday, February 12th, 2025, the Board of Education will be having its meeting with public participation in the boardroom at 125 North Core Street in Westminster. Again, that's at 4 p.m. And tentative 4 p.m. Wednesday, February 26th, 2025, special board meeting with FY26 operating budget with no public participation here in the boardroom. May I please have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Dr. Dorsey and a second by Ms. Zimmer. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Be safe going home. Thank you.